come back. I know my way around the city now. It's kind of cool. I like Portland. This place rocks. I've got my questions that people submitted for tonight. This is what I'm going to start with. I picked it because there's a few hints, one hint, in the host of one of my favorite TV shows. And when I saw this question, it just really made me laugh. It says, question, what kind of bears are best? I would have to say black bears. All right, and then on to the host. To me, the host examines all levels of love, right? What is the most powerful level of love in your opinion? Very good question, because the host really is about that. For me, it really was about looking at not just romantic love, but love of community and love of self and who you will change your life for. For me, the strongest kind of love I've ever discovered is the love of a mother for a child. And the host was my first chance to explore that kind of through a surrogate relationship. But that made the story really compelling and important to me. A very astute question, thank you. All right, this one's a bit of a spoiler, so I'm going to try and phrase it a little differently. So does Jared really lie, or does he develop feelings for Wanderer herself? People who haven't read the book yet, that probably doesn't make much sense to you. But no, he really isn't lying. I mean, there are times when there are a lot of different truths, and that's when there are two very distinct truths going on at the same time. All right. I cried several times while reading The Host. Was there any particular scene that made you feel the most emotional or tearful as you wrote or reviewed? There were several places, but particularly at the end, I think probably around chapter 57. I can't type and cry at the same time because you can't see the screen. And so I was trying so hard not to cry that my throat was just aching for about 3 chapters. And so I do very distinctly remember that experience and just kind of being down and gulping down ice water to see if it would make that feel better. I do get very emotionally involved with my stories, and if they're feeling it, generally I'm feeling it too. The host had a lot to say about tolerance, forgiveness, and understanding. What inspired you to delve into those particular themes? One of the things that has always sort of fascinated me about being human, and if this book is about anything, it's about being human, is the range that we're all capable of. I try hard to be a good person. To me, that's an important thing. And so when I watch the news and I see what people have done to each other, and the kind of violence that actually goes on in this world, and things that someone who might look just like you and me can go up and do to a total stranger on the street. You know, it's a horrifying thing. I can't really read the news or watch it because it's so upsetting to me. And the idea that we all have that in us, that possibility. And then you see the people who do things so amazing and so self-sacrificing that you wonder if you could ever be that good. You know, the highs and the lows are really interesting. And I think all of us want this to be a better world. And this was one way of exploring what kind of price we would have to pay to have that. I think this price in The Host is a little too extreme. Sure, the world's great, but none of us get to enjoy that. So it was an interesting thing to look at. Most of my books are about the relationships in them, but I did have a lot of, there was a lot of compelling moments when I was thinking about what it would really mean, what I would personally give up to have a world full of peace and goodness. All right, what was your favorite part of writing The Host? I had a lot of scenes that were really fun for me. I find that writing violence is often a lot of fun. I'm not sure why I like torturing my characters so much, but action is fun. It has its own beat. When you're working to it, you can really feel it. And there were a couple of scenes that were actually homages to other works. There's one scene in particular that is inspired by Julius Caesar, by Shakespeare. Points to anyone who comes to the line and knows that one. And there's another scene, there's a bathing scene that's actually inspired by Anne McCaffrey's Dragonflight. I always really loved a scene where someone kind of was reborn into a new situation in that way. And so it was fun to be able to incorporate some of my favorite things into the novel. All right, have you started the next book in the Host series? Whose perspective is it from? I do have an outline for a sequel. I don't know if or when I will work on it again, but if I do, the second book in the series would be from Wanderer's perspective again. But again, I've got a lot of people were noting in my questions here that I'm going on vacation for a while, quote unquote. After breaking down, I am planning on taking some time off just to write. I really plan on just working on the things that I'm excited about, so I'm not sure what that'll be. All right. Did you have troubles transitioning from writing the Twilight series to the host? How were you able to detach yourself from the characters in one book to focus on the others in the new book? That's a good question. As a writer, sometimes it can be hard to pull yourself from one story to another. When I was working on the host, I actually wasn't writing anything in the Twilight series, I was editing. It's a very different process and not one that's not, you're not as attached to it. It's not really a creative process for me. It's more like homework. It's kind of like math in some ways, so unpleasant. So when I was doing the host, what I would do is I would start reading over again. Either I'd read through the whole outline or I'd read through everything that I'd written. I'd get back to those voices. Once I was in character, so to speak, I never got confused. I had a question before. Someone asked if I'd ever put in the wrong names from the Twilight Saga, and absolutely not. I was so involved in that world that Twilight barely existed. It doesn't exist in that world, so I don't even think of those characters when I'm working on it.